Can you hear me?
Got you, bro.
Cool.
Hey, Rick, do you want to do it via video, Rick, or what? You just got to click in via video as opposed to audio. Let me text him. How you guys doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing good. Let's see here, Rick. There you go there. Connect via video. You just gotta hit that video button, video. Hit video button on bottom left.
There you go.
Oh, man.
There he is.
Sorry, I was just, I knew what I was doing. I just
How
had
you
to...
doing? Okay. I was texting. How you doing, bro?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on, Rick. I appreciate it, bro.
No, for sure. This is awesome.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the only thing you can do to have any type of sports interaction,
absolutely.
less playing sports.
Yeah, I know. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately. That's been my thing. You know, there's no other way to get sports besides that. So
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I've been doing a bunch too.
there you go. There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah,
So,
everyone.
how's
Sorry.
everything going? Everyone, this is Nicole. She
Hi.
works
Hi,
with
Nicole.
the business office and communications. She's responsible for setting this all up. Thanks,
Yeah.
Nicole.
You're welcome. And thank you all for joining us. I just want to let you know, so we have our attendees who are signing on a little early can hear us right now.
Okay.
So we'll just give everyone a few minutes to join. We'll wait for Amanda to join in as well. And then I'll do a quick intro and housekeeping, and then we can get started.
Cool.
Sounds good.
All right.
You playing a lot of video games, Rick?
Yeah, there's nothing else to do. I have my little makeshift workout area down here too. I've got some dumbbells, some bands, and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
I've been snapping. I went out and last couple of days with my dad. You know,
Okay.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
Good. All right. Hey, Amanda.
Oh, she's on mute.
Okay, can you hear me? Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
we got you.
Hello, how you doing, Rob?
Good. How are you doing, Amanda?
I'm good, thank you. Keeping busy, lots of Zoom calls, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, right? Hey, Amanda,
Greg,
this is
Rick,
Rick.
it's nice to meet you guys.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Rick and Greg. Greg, Amanda, Rick. Greg.
Yep, nice to meet you.
All right, so it is now 5:30. Thank you all for joining us this evening. My name is Nicole Began. I'm the communication specialist with the College of New Jersey School of Business. Again, thank you for joining our program this evening, and thank you to our panelists. Your microphones are muted, but we do encourage you to please submit questions to the panel throughout the event using the Q&A and chat features. This program is being recorded, and a link will be shared afterwards as well. I would now like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Robert Roche, the School of Business Adjunct Professor and President of RSR Sports Management. Rob is certified by the National Football League Players Association as a contract advisor. He has negotiated over $65 million in NFL contracts during his career as an NFL agent. He's also played football as a wide receiver during his undergraduate career at the College of New Jersey. Well, thank you, Rob.
You got it, Nicole. All right, thanks, Nicole. Appreciate it. Thanks for the panelists for being here. And I know when Nicole emailed me about doing something like this, I thought about it. I was like, it's a great idea because there's no sports. There's no sports out there with all the craziness going on in the world at the moment. And I thought it would be really cool to actually, and a fun idea, just to sit back and talk about the business of sports for about an hour or so. So I want to introduce my panelists that we have tonight. We have Greg Nejmeh from the New York Jets. He is a pro personnel director for the Jets. And Greg is a alumni of TCNJ. There we go, Greg. Yep. And he played football for TCNJ and also was a coach for TCNJ football. And Greg is someone that I've worked with over the years with the Jets, and always a pleasure to work with. And he's good at what he does, which is great. Our other panelist, next panelist, is Rick Lovato. And Rick is an RSR client of mine, which is great. And he's a Jersey guy. He's from Middletown South. And he was the long snapper for the Philadelphia Eagles. Won a Super Bowl with the Eagles when they beat, I think it was Super Bowl 52, Rick, when you guys beat the New England Patriots. And he just signed a new contract extension this season, and was one of the first long snappers voted to the Pro Bowl this past year. So he's had a good year so far. So that's really cool. Fun fact about Rick, he went to ODU, Old Dominion University, and he was the first player to ever play in a regular season game for Old DU for NFL. And then we also have Amanda DeMartino, who is our athletic director at TCNJ. And she actually is a graduate of Brandeis University. And she became the AD for TCNJ on July 3rd, 2017. She oversees 20 varsity sports and a staff of 35 full-time employees. So prior to TCNJ, she was AD at Raritan Valley Community College. So appreciate all our panelists coming on and talking a little bit about what their passion is, how they got involved in their passion of sports. And just wanted to, we'll go through a couple of things. The way we'll do it is we'll have a couple of questions that we'll talk about. Each panelist will introduce themselves as to what they do, how they got to where they're at this point in their career, their journey, so to speak. And we'll take it from there. Okay. So Amanda, tell us about your journey to the AD at TCNJ.
Sure. So I am in my third year at the College of New Jersey. It's been wonderful. I can't believe how fast the last 3 years have gone. But I started, just like most of the folks on this call, as a student athlete. Basketball was my sport. I attended Brandeis University, played there for 4 years, had just a really amazing career and academic experience. I knew for me that professional sports was just not in the books. That wasn't realistic for where I was at. So I really wanted to go someplace where I could get a great education, and loved the Division III level that provides you kind of that balance as a student athlete, which is why I love being at a Division III institution right now. But started my career coaching at Northwood University in West Palm Beach, Florida, which was an awesome experience. Missed that weather every single day, but loved it down there. Was down there for 5 years, got my master's while I was coaching, and at that time worked my way into administration. While I was coaching, we had an administrative change, and I had been there for 4 years and just done so much, not only for the women's basketball team, but just for the department in general. And not that I ever thought an opportunity would arise to become the athletic director at Northwood, but just kind of how I was wired. Whatever we did for the women's program, worked really hard with all of the other teams to try and be as beneficial as I could to the entire department. So I was really fortunate a couple years later when the opportunity presented itself to become the athletic director, and had an amazing experience. Coached and was the AD for about 2 years. And it was just a lot. It got to be a little overwhelming at that time, being young, thinking, of course I can do it all. But just felt like my time with my team, I wasn't able to devote as much time to coaching while being an athletic director. So got to a point where I really wanted to make a decision which route I was going to go, and decided to stick with administration. Also decided it was time to come back home to New Jersey because I had been away for so long. So looked for some athletic director roles and ultimately landed at Raritan Valley, which is a community college in the Somerville, Bridgewater area, for those of you who are familiar. And it was a lot of work, and it was really great. And I tell people all the time, I think at the junior college level, those administrators don't get enough respect for what they do, because our staffs are so lean and you have so many things on your plate. But for me, I was there for 6 years and got to learn really all the ins and outs of being an athletic director, from facilities to sports information to compliance, you name it. I was doing it with a really small staff. So it was a tremendous learning experience for me. Had a really great boss and president that were very supportive of me and the things that we were doing, but also knew that it had gotten to a point where we really expanded the department as far as it could go. And they knew that there was a next step for me, and that I had really wanted to get back to Division III athletics, because again, as a student athlete, that's where my heart and my passion was. And so back in 2017, the job posted for the College of New Jersey, which I was really excited about. I was fortunate to land an interview. You know, one thing led to the next, and here we are. So as Rob mentioned, we oversee 20 sports within the department. We have a lot of really successful team, a lot of successful women's teams, which is really exciting for me as a female AD. And it's just been great. And I know we have a bunch of student athletes on this call, so I wanted to give you a shout out, and I appreciate you being here.
Let's go. TCNJ athletes. Come on.
Go
man.
Lions.
That's it, no doubt. Craig, tell us about your journey to New York Jets. Pretty
Yeah,
cool.
thanks for having me, Rob. So I was a 2009 graduate of TCNJ. I played football there for 2 years, and then prior to graduating, I transitioned to kind of being an undergraduate assistant coach. And that was kind of when I first realized that I definitely wanted to do something in sports. You know, at the time I figured I would just continue coaching, really. And then when I graduated, there was a couple guys that were on the coaching staff that I had developed a close relationship with. They had some connections to the Jets personnel department. At the time, I didn't know a whole lot about scouting and personnel, to be honest with you, at the time, but I just knew it was the Jets, and I had actually grown up as a fan of the team. And, you know, I'm from Bergen County myself, so it was kind of really unique. And so that was the summer of 2009 at this point, and I just interviewed for what was going to be a 6-week training camp internship. And I was fortunate enough to get it, and I got extended through that season and then through that free agency. And then the following year, I was in a similar role. It was a little different. There was some adjustments going on, but essentially 2 years as an intern. And then I got hired full-time right after the lockout in 2011, I believe that was. And then, you know, I've been there ever since. And, you know, in this past June, I got promoted to director of pro scouting. I've been in the pro scouting department for, you know, my entire time there. And it's been, you know, obviously you want the results on the field to hopefully be a little better, you know, we all do, but it's been a great experience, and the relationships I have with the people there and the people I've established over the years, I wouldn't change for anything. You know, I've been with 4 general managers and 3 head coaches. So there's been a lot of turnover. And even though I haven't had to move my family, sometimes it feels like, you know, we already did to an extent, but I've been fortunate enough to stay there and really excited about the direction we're heading in.
Yeah, you guys finished real strong last year, which was cool. Yeah, definitely. Rick, tell us about the Super Bowl, your journey, and all that kind of stuff. You just got to hit your mic. Unmute it, I believe. Bottom left. There.
Got
Yeah.
Got it.
Here we go.
Yep.
There we go, Rick.
Technical difficulties. My Wi-Fi went out.
Hey.
But yeah, from Middletown, New Jersey. You know, I went to Middletown South High School. I was a center, defensive end, a long snapper, and I really didn't, you know, start long snapping until late in my high school career. I started going to camps. You know, I didn't know too much about it. We actually got a reference from Clark Harris's father-in-law, who worked with my mom, who's the long snapper for the Bengals. He told me to start going to camps. And once I started going to camps, I just fell in love with the position. And from there, you know, I got recruited. I wasn't a highly recruited long snapper, but I was recruited by Old Dominion. They gave me a scholarship to go there, and I played all 4 years there. Started as a true freshman, was an All-American my sophomore year. And then from there, I wanted to see what I could do in the NFL. And I got picked up by the Bears my rookie year. I was an undrafted free agent. Had a great preseason with them, starting point, got cut at the end of that training camp, and got picked up late in my rookie year with the Green Bay Packers. And that was finally my first opportunity to play in the NFL during a regular season game. And that kickstarted my whole career. I did not make it with the Packers after that rookie season. I played 4 games with them, and then went through the offseason with them, got cut again, waited 10 weeks into the 2016 season, got picked up by the Redskins, played 2 games with them, got cut, then finally got picked up by the Eagles and won that job in 2017. And just happened to be that same year we won the Super Bowl. So, and that Super Bowl experience was absolutely incredible. Every kid dreams about going and playing in a Super Bowl, and the game itself was brand new to me. I played over 60 games in my career so far, but that one stands out the most. I had felt like I'd never snapped a football before. When I first stepped on that field and let muscle memory kick in, and once I settled down, it was a lot easier. But it was the most intense game that I've ever been a part of, and one of the best Super Bowls to be a part of. Beating Tom Brady in his prime, and having just a gunslinging game with Nick Foles and this Philly special. I couldn't have been a part of more of a special Super Bowl, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it was a great game. Great game.
No doubt.
All right. Rick, tell us about, doing a contract extension during the season, right? How was that experience for you going through that process?
It was something that we were expecting, you being my agent. We were hoping that it was coming at some point, coming up on the end of my 3rd year as an Eagle. Just having a 2-year contract and a 1-year contract, and then finally getting offered a 4-year extension was incredible. I was been looking for that second contract my whole entire NFL career. Every NFL player does, and it was incredible. It came at a very unexpected time. It was sometime in November. Before I'd gotten selected to go to the Pro Bowl or anything like that. It came at the right time, and it was just a dream come true.
Tell the story about how you found out you got selected to the Pro Bowl this year.
Yeah. So, not too long after that, I think about 2 weeks after that, 2 or 3 weeks after that, I was driving home from my parents' house in Middletown down to Philly, which is only about an hour. But I'm getting close. I'm in like the Philly Jersey line, and I get a phone call from this Louisiana number. And I don't know why I didn't even have his phone number in my contacts anyway, but it was Doug. So Doug Peterson, my head coach. And I answer the phone, and he just, I thought I was in trouble. I'm like, what did I do, coach?
That's the worst thought, right?
Yeah, I'm like, oh gosh, why is the head coach calling me? And then he called to tell me, he's like, hey, you just got selected to the Pro Bowl, and I wanted to be the first one to tell you. The official thing comes out at 8 p.m. It was like 5 p.m. when he told me, and I just couldn't keep it in. It was incredible. I just started screaming in my car. My fiance was just like, oh my God, it was insane. But just the icing on a very short career that I've had so far, the icing on the cake, a Super Bowl, a Pro Bowl, a contract extension, all in a matter of 4 or 5 years is absolutely incredible. No other player could ask for anything else. I'm just truly blessed that this all happened at the time that it did.
Man, that's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
Greg.
Yeah.
Take the students through, what you do at the Jets, if you could.
Yeah. So I've been in the pro scouting department my whole time there. And as the director of pro scouting, basically, 11 months out of the year, really, pro scouting is happening. There's not really a time that it's quiet other than when there's not training camp going on, which is kind of mid-June to mid-July, really. So when we start training camp, we're scouting every other team in the league all players that may get cut from another team for any number of reasons. At final cuts, we're allowed to pick those guys up. So that's who we're scouting at that point. When we get into the season, we're scouting all of our upcoming opponents for advanced, scouting reports and talking about from a personnel, not so much scheme, more from a personnel standpoint, how we feel we match up against certain teams and where they have strengths and weaknesses. And then the big thing is free agency, which we kind of just, are ending essentially. But every player that's a UFA or a unrestricted free agent or a restricted free agent, we scout them as well and, grade them and put a value on them. And, we're constantly trying to obviously upgrade our team. In season, there's a lot of, we do workouts. You have a practice squad that you have to manage, and you try to continually update your list. If you have a player that gets hurt in a game, you need to know who's available. They're not on a team currently, so who's available, who are the best options, and you bring them in for a workout and a physical, and then you sign them to either your active roster or your practice squad. You're also allowed to scout other teams' practice squads and then sign them to your active roster as well. So you're scouting at a lot of different levels of player. You're scouting players who, for whatever reason, maybe you're getting, got let go by their team or aren't on a team right now, but you have to try to find a positive, in them and how you think they can help your team. And then you're obviously scouting, players that you're going to potentially spend a lot of money on in free agency as well. So that's kind of the essence of it. But I think, along with that, there's a component of, being in the office and working with the football administration side and relationships with agents like you and I have, Rob, is a big part of it too. It's not just watching film, and a lot of things through the whole organization run through the scouting department, the operations, whole football operations kind of runs through there. So it's more than just scouting. There's a lot more to it, especially, when you work in office with people. So, but it's really exciting. There's never a dull moment, really, and it's been a blast so far.
That's cool. Let me ask you a question. What do you think the one skill that's helped you the most at your job, Rick?
I would say to get started, the thing I kind of tell people all the time is just I was always available to do whatever was needed. For 2 years I hadn't been hired full time, so it wasn't like I had any special skill. I just was always available, and the people that you end up working with, they end up realizing that, and they know you're reliable and that you're trustworthy and that you're going to put, the team first and try to do the best job for the department and the team. So I think at first that was, that was probably the one thing that really helped me kind of get my foot in the door. And then that, you can't ever lose sight of that. But I think as you continue to grow and develop in your career, you have to just be yourself, and you can't be afraid to offer your opinion or your thought on things. You have to be secure enough to know that, you've put the thought and the work into it, and you're trying to do it to help the team or the organization as best you can. And you don't have, an agenda in any way. You're trying to offer that insight as best you can. And, you have to be a great teammate to everyone that you work with. I think a lot of those things are skills that don't have to do with watching film, that don't have to do with, being the best scout in the world. It's kind of how you are as a teammate within the organization and the people that you work with, and that's whether you're in sports or not. To me, it's something I found invaluable.
What do you find the most rewarding about your job there at the Jets?
I would say, like, when you do put the work and the time in on a player, evaluating a player, and you sign them, whether it be the practice squad or say he got cut from another team and you feel really strongly about him, and you recommend him to the general manager, and you end up signing that player, and then that player ends up playing for you, helping you win a game, that sort of stuff. A lot of times it may not be the players that, the public talks about a lot of the time, but it's something that when you sit back and watch the game, that player, he may just have played special teams for you or played 10 snaps on defense, but he contributed to your team winning a game. And that's a really rewarding feeling for us when you see that come to fruition.
Yeah, I can tell you on my end, it's really rewarding. You got a guy you believe in, you push him. And just like Rick, didn't make it the first time, didn't make it the second time. But then when he finally gets that job and he sticks, and then he performs like a beast, and then he actually able to get the second contract.
Yeah.
Like, that's like really cool on my end. It's
Yeah,
really
no
cool.
doubt. No, it really is. It's because you put the work into it, and just like Rick did, he suffered some setbacks in his career. Like, not every guy that you bring up is gonna, the team is gonna go through with your recommendation, but when they do, and it works out, you feel really good about it because you feel like you helped the team.
Yeah, no doubt. So Amanda, this year was a pretty cool year for TCNJ athletics, right? You guys had some men's basketball went deep into the Division III tournament, and then women's basketball got there too. Talk to the students about like what that feels like as an athletic director that's ultimately responsible for putting all those pieces together for them to be successful.
Yeah, sure. So really exciting year for men's basketball, breaking records left and right, winning the conference for the first time in 30 years, like making history. Really awesome. Same for our women's team. And I feel a little bit bad. I feel really bad actually for our wrestlers and for our swimmers because they were all slate to compete at nationals and got cut short with everything going on. So they didn't have a chance to compete. But for our men's and women's basketball team, it was extra exciting, not just for me, but for our administrative team for a couple of reasons. We have some programs at TCNJ that are so well established and so consistently perform and do well. Like Joe Russo, our women's soccer coach, has done a phenomenal job. Sharon Pfluger, our field hockey lacrosse coach, those coaches have been here well over 20 years. Of course, my administrative team works really hard to support them in what they're doing, but they're really well established. When it comes to our men's and women's basketball programs, our women's coach actually started the first day that I started 3 years ago. And our men's coach, Matt, had just been on staff 2 years before I started. So those programs were in a really different place when I took over. And so I work really hard with my administrative team. When I talk with all of our coaches, there's two conversations that we have, right? Number one is what's the game plan? Where are we going? Who are we recruiting? How are we going to get better? Where are we looking to finish next year? How far do we think we can advance? Right? That's really what I put on the coaches. And then the second piece of that is what support do you need? Like, what are you not getting that we can help to provide, whether that's resources, support on a different level, what does that look like? And so for our men's and women's basketball programs, really in the process of changing a culture with new coaches, getting all of their players aligned. I've talked a lot with the two first-time head coaches in their roles that Matt and Chessie are in now. There's just a lot of things behind the scenes that the student athletes don't know about, right? Conversations about ways that we can support, things that we can do to contribute to make their lives easier. And what can my team alleviate from the coaches' plates so that the coaches can focus on recruiting, on coaching, on graduating kids, like all that other noise, let us handle it. And so there's a lot of work we put into those programs. So to have those programs now in my third year really having the success that they've had is just the best feeling because we really have put a lot into it and really feel like we are a part of helping to build those programs and where they're at. So all credit to those kids and to those student athletes. But for us and as an administrative team, it's just for any of our teams and for any of our student athletes to find success as an administrator, it's just so fun to be a part of it. We don't get the credit all the time, for being a part of that, but we know we work 8 days a week, long hours, especially when we have those sports season overlaps. And it's just been a tremendous ride. I'm just so upset that it got cut short, not only for winter, but the rest of our spring athletes. But we're in a really good place and I'm super proud of everybody and proud to be a part of playing a small piece and helping them get there.
Yeah, no, it's been cool to see like what a great program, like in all different sports that you got, they went through the NCAAs for the basketball, but the other sports programs too, they're all solid. They're all solid in the NJAC and stuff like that, which is a tough conference. Really.
It is. And TCNJ is unique. People don't realize, I think we get a little bit spoiled because after fall sports, winter and spring, most of our teams, if not all of them, are competing in postseason. And that's not necessarily common at colleges across the board. So we're really busy because we do have a lot of transition, right? While fall sports are in postseason, we've got winter sports starting up, and then that happens again with the winter and spring. But we are really fortunate. We have a tremendous group of coaches and a really great staff to support them, which I'm most proud of. I think if you ask the coaches today versus 3 years ago when I started, what changes have they seen? And I think every single one of them will talk to you about how they feel, again, more supported administratively behind the scenes so that they can just focus on, what we need them to do.
Right. No, it's cool. No, good stuff. All right. So we'll open up for questions, right? And so you guys can want to submit questions via chat. We can, I'll read them out and you guys, and whoever asks the questions towards can answer it. All right, so one of the first questions we got, question for Rick and Greg. I'm a finance major. I'm very interested in sports, specifically football. How did you guys start to branch out into the sports field? I think, Greg, you guys already covered that a little bit. Did you start at a small level, like minor league, college sports, or did you shoot for a smaller position in the major league level or something else? Greg, why don't you take that?
Yeah. Like I said, I obviously was an undergraduate at TCNJ. I happened to transition, to the NFL a couple months after graduating. But, I think there's a high percentage of people who don't necessarily go to the NFL right away. There's a lot of great ways to work for colleges at varying levels. We have a lot of people in our department, in our organization, who just kind of started there to get some experience and then, transition to the NFL. I kind of did that. I just happened to be an undergraduate, so I think there's multiple ways to kind of get there. You shouldn't really worry about where you're starting. It's about the job you're doing wherever that is, because this business, the whole sports business, is really a relationship-based business. So if you're making a good impression wherever you start, that will have an effect much larger than wherever you start. So I wouldn't be too concerned with that that aspect of it. Just make sure you're doing as good a job as you can wherever that may be.
Yeah, what I always say to interns that I have and stuff like that, or people who are interested in getting into sports, is do internships.
Yep.
Internships are the way to go. Even if you're not getting paid, it's so competitive to get into the sports industry that if you can get an internship, even if it's non-paying, number one, take it. But number two, while you're there, you said it, do what's asked of you. There's no job too small for you to do. And I always tell my interns to, make yourself valuable. Make yourself valuable. If you become valuable and good at a certain skill that someone else doesn't have on that staff, you're going to stand out. And they're going to you want to make sure they keep you around, basically, that they got to keep you around. I mean, I always do that with my interns. And some guys have some skill sets which I didn't even think of, but it's been very helpful. We have another question came in for Rick from Matt. Rick, how did you stay motivated and maintain a positive outlook after being undrafted and cut at the beginning of your career?
I started out after getting cut. I was really down on myself, but I knew it wasn't my last shot. I was working at my dad's pizza and sub shop in Lincroft, New Jersey. And, when I was there, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to make pizzas and subs my whole life. So that was my motivation in general. And we were such a mom and pop place that everyone that came in knew who I was. So they'd ask me, hey, how's the NFL looking? Are you getting phone calls? Everyone would come in and ask me that. And that was another motivator for me. So I'd go to work and then come back from work, go work out, go snap, do whatever I had to do to get ready, like I was getting ready for a game. During the season, I waited 16 whole weeks my rookie year up until I played my very first game, regular season game. And that was something that was really hard. It's hard to go in and week out of just not playing a sport that you haven't really played on the professional level besides during a preseason game. It's hard, but you have to go out there and you have to stay motivated. If you want something bad enough, you're going to go get it. And that was my attitude. I wanted to play in the NFL. That was the ultimate goal for what I did. And after I played in the preseason, I knew I was good enough. I knew I had the ability to go play in the NFL. I just had to keep working on things that were my weaknesses. And that translates to anything in life. You have to work on those weaknesses to get better at what you want to do and to perform and to have that skill set. Like Rob said, you need that skill set that no one else has. And I felt like I had that as a young player in the NFL, that I could go out there and perform at a high level. And that was the motivation right there.
Yeah, some of it too is being at the right place at the right time. If
For
you
sure.
remember Green Bay, they
Oh,
brought you in just to work you out, see you for future stuff, and then they bring you in that week, and then that very next game they brought you in on a Tuesday. That next game, their guy went down with an injury, and the key thing is, it's being at the right place, right time, but it's also being able to step it up and perform at a high level when you get your opportunity. And, you did that when you got to work out with Green Bay because you did a good job in your workout. Then you got signed that next week to go snap for him.
Yeah, I had a workout. The workout was on a Friday.
Yes,
and that Sunday the long snapper tore his ACL, and on Monday they gave me a call. So the timing of that is impeccable. But and it sucks to say in the NFL, a lot of guys' careers start from injuries, but they do. Like that, you have to be prepared for it, and that's how I got my shot. And I didn't stay with the Green Bay Packers, but that's just an opportunity for you to go out there and perform and show all other 31 teams. Because I know, like Greg, he's looking at every other team in the NFL. He's not looking at just one guy on one team. So that's the biggest thing. You're not performing for just that one team. You're performing for every other team in the NFL.
And it's all about getting better every day. Like when
Absolutely.
you got cut from Green Bay, you didn't just sit back and say, boo-hoo, I got cut. You went and said, okay, how can I get better? What do I need to work on? It was footwork, It was blocking, that type of thing. Those skill sets you had to work on, and you went out to Gary's Honors and worked on that stuff.
Yeah, those weaknesses that I was talking about, you have to work on them. And going into the NFL as a long snapper, it is a lot different from college. You're doing a completely different job than you did in college, where I just snap the ball, run down field, or snap the ball on field goal and block a couple guys that weren't that big. In the NFL, these guys are running 4.4s, 4.5s, and they're coming straight at you, and you have to block. And if you're not big enough, you're not strong enough to block or have the right footwork or all the other things that come into technique and schematics, schemes that NFL teams run, you need to be prepared for every single thing. And that's film study, that's doing the right things in the gym. That's just countless hours of practicing and experience that you need to put on yourself to get better.
Yeah. We had another question here, actually, for me. Question, Mr. Roche, funny Mr. Roche, right? What qualities and characteristics make for a successful agent? And, I tell you, there's two that actually a couple, but the most important one, I think, is the ability to sell. When I go to meet with a prospective client, player that I want to sign, I have to be able to sell myself and what my firm can do for that player. And then when I go to talk to play guys such as Greg, I have to be able to communicate and bring out the positive points of my player to be able to sell him to the Jets or to another team. So I think one of the biggest abilities and characteristics that are really good is the ability to sell and be authentic when you're doing it. And, and then to listen. I think I've learned so much from listening to people like Greg talk to me about my guys, what their weaknesses are, what the team thinks about them. And in negotiations, I've learned so much more about the opponent, not the opponent, but the other people on the other side of the table by listening, by shutting my mouth and listening to where they're coming from, what they're thinking about, so, and it helps you because then you can work with them and try to get a deal done. When you're negotiating a contract, it's not you want to kill the other side. You want to actually get a deal done for your player that your player can feel happy about, and the team is going to feel, okay, you know what? This is a good deal for us too. Basically, it doesn't. Most of the time, it works out that way. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But that's, I think, is the goal. Greg, what did you major in at TCNJ?
Political science, actually. So,
really?
Yeah, wasn't a great correlation to sports, really. But
how did that help you with the Jets, or in your career so far?
To be honest with you, I don't really know that it had. I think when I started coaching as an undergraduate, I was already involved in the political science major, and at that point to kind of switch gears and go to sports management or something, it didn't make a ton of sense. I always enjoyed politics and that sort of stuff, and that was kind of what I had when I had initially got into it. But I think as I continued to grow and learn about more what I really was passionate about, what I wanted to do, it was going to be in sports. So I just kind of made sure I got through and was able to graduate. But I always had my mind on trying to get into sports in some way, regardless of what my major was.
Okay. Amanda, what was your major at
So I actually majored in economics, minored in business and philosophy. I thought I would be, being from New Jersey, Rick also growing up on the Jersey Shore myself. I thought I'd move back to Hoboken, get a job in finance in the city, because that's just like what you do. But got to that point, for those of us who are athletes, and I know the seniors on this call feel this, your 4 years in college go so fast. And before you know it, it's senior year. And so you're not ready to just walk away from this sport for those of us who are not going professional. So it was actually my dad who said, why don't you look for GA jobs or assistant coaching jobs just so you could stay involved while you figure it out. And fortunately for me, I figured out that working in college athletics was really the path and where I wanted to be.
Okay, cool. Greg, we had a question for you. How do you develop the necessary skills to become a part of the scouting department for an NFL team?
So I think there's not like, when you get into it, say you're at an entry-level position or an intern level, it's not like you're able to sit there and go to school for it each day. It's just things are moving and things are moving fast. So a lot of it is on you to try to pick up, being around other scouts and more experienced scouts, trying to pick up what they're seeing, what they're identifying, and asking the right questions too. And if you have an inclusive atmosphere, which we, currently do at the Jets, I think it's a great way for an intern or an entry level position to really sit back and hear, more experienced scouts discuss what they see on film, how they identify things that they look for. And just kind of getting to talk that language. I still learn every meeting that I'm in, from guys that have a lot more experience than myself. So that never stops. You never get to the point where you're just comfortable with how much it's just not realistic. So I think you develop it by being involved in there. There's certainly aspects of it that you could do on your own in terms of, watching film and trying to identify certain traits, physical traits that a player may have, and there's avenues to do that. But I think that the best way to do it is really when you do get that opportunity is trying to pick up as much as you can from the people that you're working with.
Okay, gotcha. We have another question here. As a finance major, I'm trying to keep up with my studies. I'm also trying to become a reputable soccer coach, all simultaneously at a young age. And Amanda, you could take this one if you could. At what age did you guys start trying to pursue your dreams, and roughly how long did it take to see everything flourish? So, in terms of coaching.
Yeah, sure. So for me, it was I was really fortunate. So it's funny, I graduated college not having a job, right? And at that time, especially nowadays, I know so many of our seniors are already hooked up for next year. So I was in the midst of applying for a bunch of jobs, but it wasn't until the day that I was moving out of my apartment in Boston, moving back home, that I got a call that I had gotten this coaching job. But what I tell people all the time is it's never too early to start applying, especially if you're a senior or even a junior right now. If you're a junior, look for internship opportunities over the summer, if it's at the professional level or even within college athletics. But even after you graduate and you're applying for full-time jobs, I tell people all the time that persistence is key. When you see somebody get a job, it's easy to say, oh, wow, great, they got that job. But you don't know how many interviews that person has gone on, how many jobs they've applied for. I think, Greg, you had said it, that business is such a relationships field, right? So even if you do have to work for 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is, without pay or with really minimal pay to get your foot in the door, to get some experience, it just is what you have to do. My first job out of college, I made really very, very, very little money as an assistant coach, and was fortunate that my parents were able to help kind of support me during that time. But I had a side hustle too. I tell people all the time, I used to work at Banana Republic in the off season to try and make a little bit of cash, but it's what I had to do at the time. And it's hard at first, but you keep at it, and for sure your persistence will pay off.
Okay, cool. Hey, Rick, question for you. Question is, Rick, what was it like after you won the Super Bowl? Question, and what was the first thing you did when you got back to school?
So after we won the Super Bowl, the one thing that I truly remember is that I just started bawling my eyes out. It was my first full year in the NFL, after being cut 3 times by 3 different teams. Everything just hit me all when I ran on that field after we beat the Patriots. It all just hit me. And my fiance, who was my girlfriend at the time, she ran on the field and she was covering my face because all the cameras were on me. They were taking pictures of me, crying my eyes out, and I just couldn't hold it back. This was a dream come true, literally, for me. And, it was just the best feeling I had ever felt in my entire life. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
What did you do when you got back? What's the first thing you did when you got back to Philly?
The first thing we did when we got back was really it was the parade. You know, I'd stayed up maybe for like 2 days straight, and then we as soon as we pulled back, pulled in with the plane, fans were just everywhere. They were at the airport. They were on our bus route all the way back to our facility, which is about 15 minutes away. They were everywhere. And the parade hadn't even started until, 2 days after that. But the fans were just so supportive. Philadelphia, this was their very first Super Bowl. So it was hectic. It was insane. But we got back to our apartment, settled down a little bit. And the next day was the parade. And it was incredible. The atmosphere of Eagles fans, just the pure happiness of an entire city rallying around one football team was just incredible. And I wish I could relive it. That's for sure.
Yeah, but they don't talk about the Super Bowl parties, the after party at the Super Bowl, because
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
we had
Cardi B, Diplo.
Diplo,
right?
yep.
Nick
And
was walking around the place.
that's right.
Totally
M. Night Shyamalan was just hanging out with our owner, and there was a lot of famous people there. And, you just felt like a celebrity when you were there. You were hanging out with all these people. Yeah, it was incredible. I couldn't have pictured a losing Super Bowl party. I mean, but holy moly,
I've been to one of those with Seattle. I was with Seattle losing party. It was not as good as the winners party.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Murray, he really gets it. Does a great job with the post Super Bowl party. That was really cool.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he does an incredible job keeping our organization intact. That's for sure.
Yeah, Greg, question for you. Greg, when you find a prospect you think is a good fit, describe your pitch process to the GM and the coaches to get your prospect a shot at the position. How much is it stats versus intangibles?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, well, in terms of the pitch process, you don't want to come off as though you're, you're trying to sell something too hard. You just want to be honest in your evaluation, So, for example, if there was a receiver that I felt really strongly about, I would just say, hey, this guy got cut from a team. I think we should pick him up. To me, he had speed and quickness to our receiving core, and I think he upgrades player X who's on the back end of our roster, and I think that he would fit our scheme for these following reasons. So you don't want to try to sell it too much because every player is going to have some strengths and weaknesses. So you don't want to gloss over that. You want to be able to just honestly and objectively say what you think the player is. But if you feel like this player's talent level is better than or can upgrade your roster in some way, that's the most important thing that you want to get across. In terms of it being, intangibles versus production, the biggest thing we try to do off tape is identify physical traits. So what we think the player's speed is, his quickness, his strength, his physicality, his change of direction, all those physical traits. And then there's other traits too that are not, truly athletic traits. They're more, their instincts, their effort on the field, how smart or savvy of a player they are. So there's, with each position, there's various factors that you try to identify, and, you try to do the best job you can to identify each of them off tape. There's certainly, it is a production-based business, so some guys may not have a ton of high-level traits, but they're just a good football player, and their production shows that. So you can also, you use that as kind of a balancing act. Analytics is something that is in the NFL and will continue to grow in the NFL. And, so you kind of balance both. But, as a scout, the biggest thing is just, go with what your eyes see really at the end of the day. What you think this player is, and if you think he upgrades or helps your team in some way, that's what you want to get across.
Yeah, I think there's always a saying that says the tape doesn't lie.
Yeah, exactly.
The tape does not lie. I know as an agent, when I talk to guys such as Greg and stuff like that about my players, I try not to oversell too. And what I want to do is make sure they get evaluated. Just so as long as you guys evaluate the guy and look at his tape and look at his film and get to know what he's about, and then it's up to you guys to make your decision of what you want, what fits for your organization and stuff like that. But my role, I think, as an agent on this end is to make sure the player gets evaluated, gets looked at. And then it's up to the guys. If you're going for a workout, they got to step it up and do what they got to do. Questions for Amanda. Amanda, what have you learned from the business side of sports being an AD that you were surprised or didn't think about until you got into your position?
So it's a good question. I think just kind of in general, it's really all the work behind the scenes that goes into producing a program, all the support that the student athletes and the coaches need. Right. A lot of that, hopefully our student athletes don't ever feel or see those struggles, those battles that we're fighting behind the scenes as administrators. But one of the reasons I got out of coaching, because when you're recruiting all the time, when you're there is no off season in coaching, right? Like you're in season, you're doing your thing. Off season, you're recruiting, you're working hard, you're figuring out your game plan, you're working with your staff. And so even on the coaching perspective, I think there's a bit of this mindset that the administrative side is a little bit quote unquote easier, right? Because you don't have those travel schedules. You're not every weekend recruiting. So you think there's going to be more free time in a sense. And that's just simply not the case. There's a lot of little things working with folks across campus, dealing with every department across campus. The athletic department is really like a microcosm of the college, right? We work with admissions, we work with financial aid, we work with fundraising, student affairs, res ed, all of those things. So I think for me at first, there was just this misconception that an administrative job in athletics was kind of like a 9-to-5 desk job. And that simply is not the case. There's a tremendous amount of work. And I think the toughest part is being able to kind of keep that poker face again of when I have to make difficult decisions or I have to deliver, news to a coach that maybe we're not able to provide some resource that we were really hoping to provide. Like being able to get that message across while keeping everybody motivated and making sure that that disappointment or that frustration doesn't trickle down to the student athletes. Because at the end of the day, the student athletes, all they need to be worried about is working hard, going to practice, getting it done in the classroom, like focusing on the things that they can control. So, working to kind of manage keeping everybody motivated and dealing with challenging situations is also something that I think was unanticipated for me.
Okay. One of the questions that came up too here in my class, we talked a lot about the XFL this year in class, in terms of the business model, sports, revenue, all that kind of stuff. So the question is for Greg, how much scouting was done with the XFL this year? Did you guys spend, evaluating talent, quote unquote, in the XFL?
We scouted it really hard. We had each team was assigned. I assigned each team to our other 3 pro scouts. I went to the first game that the Guardians had played. We had 2 pro scouts at the training camp when they did the joint training camp down in Houston. And then, right as the season, everything was kind of shutting down, they finally released the film. So we were able to watch it on film too. We had a pretty long list, extensive list of guys that we were tracking and monitoring for the XFL, and guys that we still are. One of the things that, I don't know how closely everyone here has followed it, but, free agency happened and you're unable to get physicals on a lot of the players you've agreed to terms with. The same thing with a lot of these XFL players. So you have an interest in them and a lot of other teams have an interest in them, but there's a delay right now because they just played games, these guys, and you can't get an actual physical on them. But to answer the question, we scouted it really thoroughly and we continue to monitor it. Any guys that have come up, and we have a list ready to go, once everything kind of calms down.
Question for Rick. Rick, how are you going to handle the off season if the off season program is shortened this year?
Yeah, so right now it's indefinitely suspended. Like I was saying earlier to you, I go out, I get some snapping in on the field. Luckily, 15 yards is social distancing, so snapping for me is easy enough.
Yeah.
I have to try and go and do the same things that I've been doing as we do during a normal OTA workout. I'll wake up, get my workout in. I've got my dumbbells, I've got my resistance bands and everything like that. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of barbells and all that kind of stuff and access to a full gym. But tough times call for tough measures. You just got to get it done with what you have. And luckily for me, I have enough to get me by. And for me as a long snapper, I know that workouts aren't grueling for me. So I just try to go out and do whatever I can to the best of my ability, go run, go snap, lift some weights, and then, relax, stay at home, and stay safe.
Okay. Greg, this question's for you. You don't have to answer it, but we can do an offshoot of it. Greg, who do you want the Jets to draft this year, right? And he also says, this is our year. Let's go. But I guess the question could be, what role do you play in the draft process for the Jets?
Yeah, so in the draft process, obviously, that at that point it's more, the college scouting department. They do a phenomenal job all year, and that's really for them. On the pro scouting side, free agency, final cuts and free agency is kind of our Super Bowl, so to speak, and the draft for the college scouting department. That's theirs, and we have a really good one. So I'm excited for it. My role in the draft, I think, the way it's been in the past is that I'll be in the draft room. I typically will sometimes call around to other teams to see if any teams are, looking to trade potentially, and just kind of help with that communication, at times, and, relay it to people. And obviously it's, the decisions with our general manager, but other than that, we do watch players and offer our opinion, because, whether you're scouting pro or college players, you want to get, different people's opinions. So we do that to an extent. And then just kind of offering support in any way we need to. Our job is to know the league in and out. So, what we can predict in terms of what we think other teams' needs are, what they may target in the draft, we try to provide that insight, to just, try to help plan a little bit and how we think things may fall for us. So all those sorts of things. And, try not to, we try to take a backseat to the college department in that regard, and just offer as much support as we can.
Okay. This is for Amanda and Greg. What does your job look like from home in quarantine? How are you able to function and stuff like that for your job?
Sure. So I can start off. It's been pretty busy, actually, more busy again than maybe I anticipated being at home, but a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of emails, just staying on top of our student athletes. So first and foremost, that's my biggest priority with these online classes, like making sure that everybody's doing what they need to be doing. And not just watching too much Netflix. I know there's probably some binge watching, but hopefully they're balancing that with workouts and with academics. But really staying connected to my staff. So you said when we started, I have over 35 full-time employees. And so how do we keep all of those people engaged? For my administrative team and for my coaches, there's certainly a lot that we could be doing, but we have staff like our strength and conditioning coach and our athletic training staff, right? That is being as supportive as they can from a distance in terms of providing rehab and workouts for kids to do. But that's been my biggest priority, is just trying to keep everybody engaged and involved and continuous progressing. Before this all happened, man, our department was really cruising. We were in a great spot. We were getting a lot of stuff done. And so keeping everybody motivated. And really, we've been trying to look at this time as you never have this opportunity in college athletics where you have this downtime to essentially get ahead. Right? And hopefully we're never in this situation again. So while we're here right now, what can we do to get ahead of the curve, to make things easier, so that when we do return to campus and with our student athletes, we can focus more on them and what we need to be doing versus being stressed about things maybe that are hard to get to.
Cool. Greg?
Yeah, it's been the first couple of days were a little bit of an adjustment. Honestly, I'm in a pretty good routine now. I'm set up in the basement. That's why I have this fake background behind me right now, because it's not a great background, but no, it's been great. Our IT department, our video department do a great job. So I've been able to watch film, get on all our databases and everything. We've done Microsoft Teams with the pro scouting staff. We have, just a call probably every couple days just to touch base with everyone. We did one today with everyone in, the scout pro and college scouting department. So it's been really good. It's been honestly, it's kind of been a little blessing in disguise. I've gotten to spend much more time with, I have a daughter who's 3 and a son who's 1.5. So being able to spend time with them and with my wife's been great. And, my wife's done an awesome job of, when I do go down in the basement to work, of kind of distracting the kids a little bit. So I'm able to get some stuff done. And so it's been really good. It hasn't affected too much. I think everyone's done a great job adjusting and, getting some time at home that, ordinarily we would never have.
Yeah. It's all about adjustments. And cool thing is there's silver lining in the whole thing, right?
Exactly. No doubt.
Yeah. This question's for me. Rob, how much back and forth and strategic thinking did you and Rick go through when discussing your pitch to the GMs to extend Rick's contract or when getting a bump in pay? Basically, with any negotiation, it takes two to tango, right? And so in this situation for Rick, he's had a good 3 years with the Eagles. We were hoping that they're going to come to us. We wanted them to come to us to actually extend them and indicate that they want to extend them. And they did do that. And then it's just about basically you look at the comparables for the other contracts for snappers. I had just done Thomas Hennessy's deal with the Jets, and so we had that comparable. And try to you just got to fit your guy in. We went back and forth a bunch, but we wanted to fit him in. And the key thing for us is we wanted the most money in year one. Basically how much money you're going to get in the first year of that deal, how much is it going to be fully guaranteed. And the Eagles were great to work with. They were actually looking to do an option bonus so they could put some of the money into this year's cap. And so we were agreeable to that and able to knock it out. Rick, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I thought it was a very smooth transition from, the first time we talked with them to the final day. We went back and forth a few times with the GM and all the upper management guys to decide what was fair for me and what was reasonable within the long snapping community as far as contracts go. And yeah, I think we got a great deal done. A 4-year deal, which is incredible. I couldn't have asked for anything more from Rob, getting it done and, him filling me in on the things that I didn't know about contracts. And it's just everything that a player can ask for.
Yeah. And as an agent too, you want to, you work for your client. I work for Rick. And so my job is to, work to make his goals a reality. And one of his thoughts was he loved playing for the Eagles. And if all things being equal, he wanted to stay there. So it made sense just to push and try to get something done for him. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. Amanda, what is the most difficult part of managing a limited budget for an academics first college?
Sure. So, I tell people all the time that we are in the business of making difficult decisions. So I think the hardest part with that is prioritizing. And really being strategic about where you put your money and where you invest and thinking about where you're going to get a greater return on investment. I tell my staff all the time that if I'm able to go out and, right, we have 20 sports. So if I'm able to go out and raise $20,000, every single team is not getting $1,000, right? It's just not the way it works, and that we would not have a big impact in going about it that way. So I have to make some really challenging decisions in terms of where we invest fundraise dollars or what initiatives we look to support. So really important for me to have open communication with the coaches, to be really transparent with them. And then also just to be clear with the staff so everybody understands like what our priorities are, what our strategic vision is. I don't want anybody ever being caught off guard or surprised that we're investing in, one area over another. I think it's really important for my team to kind of be transparent about what our game plan is and where we're going. And then help to show folks like we're investing in this initiative with this intention, right? And then hopefully once that initiative is successful, that builds a much stronger platform for me to stand on to turn around and use that success as an example when I'm advocating for more budget dollars or when I'm talking with donors to try and secure more fundraise dollars. But I would say definitely like the number one thing is setting those priorities. So it's pretty clear what direction we're going to be going.
Okay. Rick, question for you. How often do you wear your Super Bowl ring?
Not very often. I go back and look at it every now and then, every couple months, whatever, but I'll wear it to nice banquets or, maybe a wedding, depending on the wedding. But yeah, it's definitely a talking point but it's just so big, you can't really just wear it anywhere. But I know some guys that wear it a lot and it's just a cool piece. For me, I'm not a big jewelry guy, so I don't like wearing it, but for me, I like to just look at it. It's just beautiful, and it just reminds me of that game, that season, and everything that we went through that year.
Cool. All right, Greg, bunch of questions on the virtual draft this year. Obviously, a little bit of a different spin on the draft this year. How do you think that the virtual draft will go this year, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think everyone everyone's going to be in the same the same boat, to begin with. So, there'll be a level playing field. I think as long as people adjust and realize this is how it's going to be, which we've already done, I think it'll be fine. It'll certainly be different from an optic standpoint, watching it on TV, I'm sure. But a lot of the communication, instead of it being done all in the same room, will probably be done through, a Zoom or a Teams app like this. And the conversations that you have, they probably won't be any different. So I think everyone, we're really fortunate. Our IT department is unbelievable. And so, for us, I think we all feel really confident and comfortable that everything will go from our end as great, as good as it can. It'll be interesting. I think it's an unknown, no one can really predict how it's going to look, but, I'm not too concerned really about it. I think we're all excited for it really to just get started. It's regardless of how it looks, it's still an opportunity to hopefully get our team better and get some really good young players, on our team. And, this adversity or adjustment, it won't deter us from doing that. And I would imagine most teams in the league have that outlook as well.
Yeah, I tell you, I believe it's going to be the most watched NFL draft ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's no other game in town.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree.
Yeah. Rick, question for you. When you were going through the NFL draft process, right, that third day of the draft, okay, how did you feel? What was your thought process as a prospective NFL player going through that process on that day?
Yeah, so as a long snapper, you're not expecting to get drafted usually. There's maybe one guy drafted every draft. In the last few years, there's been a couple drafted. Some years that there's zero. But for me, I was expecting to go undrafted, so I had to go mentally prepare for the teams that were going to call me after the draft. And there was two teams that were on my list. It was the Miami Dolphins and the Chicago Bears. And, at that point, you kind of have to decide whether, what's going to go best for you, where the best place is to go and try to compete for that job. Unfortunately, Miami had dropped out of nowhere when they were looking to pick me up as an undrafted free agent, and that happens. So we called Chicago and decided that was a great place for me anyway to go compete for that job. There was a veteran guy there that had just been brought in from the Kansas City Chiefs, so it was kind of up in the air, So I was excited for my opportunity to go compete for that position, but at the same time, everything was brand new to me. So playing in the NFL and going through practices and workouts and all that in a professional, job, it was tough. I had to go out there and compete harder, and I had to do everything I could at my knowledge at that point to try to win the position. And unfortunately, I did everything I could, but they just weren't ready to pick up a rookie to go play their season.
Gotcha. Let me ask you a question for Greg first, and then maybe Amanda. How do you think the stuff with the COVID-19 is going to impact the NFL coming up? You think, Greg?
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. Rick had mentioned it before. The off-season program, is currently, suspended indefinitely. I don't think anyone, teams are kind of starting to transition towards doing, virtual off seasons like this, where you could have meetings or, even, virtual workouts, I believe. So, I think we're all hopeful that at least by the time training camp starts, that, hopefully this is kind of under control and things can hopefully start to get back to normal at that point. I don't think anyone truly, knows, obviously, for sure. But, I think that's just hearing, the commissioner and other people, speak about it. That's what the hope is. In terms of how it'll affect it, honestly, I don't know. You saw what the NBA did when there was just one player that had tested positive at that point, and they canceled their whole season. So, hopefully by the time the players start to get back in the building and training camp starts, there's maybe more preventative measures that can be taken to hopefully avoid a situation like that. But I think we're all kind of in in wait and see mode.
Amanda, your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So I agree with that about being in wait and see mode. I go back and forth. I'm probably one of the most optimistic people that you'll ever meet. So in my mind, most days I'm like, yeah, we're going to be fine. It's going to work out. But every day things are still changing. And I think the real challenges with this are the financial implications of everything, right? Like so many people rely on those salaries and so many people make money off of sports in general. In terms of the NCAA, like I think that's one of the reasons why they held off kind of pulling the plug as long as they did. I mean, it got to the point where the Big East tournament, right? They played the first half of the first game on that Thursday, and then they just pulled everyone off. And something that I don't think most people realize is that the NCAA generates like the majority of their revenue off of that March Madness. So not being able to have it has massive implications on the NCAA and what that means for us at Division III. And so it's hard because I know there's a lot of folks wanting for things to resume to normal because we're trying to keep going with our operations, but of course, health and safety first. And I don't know where it's going to go. It's going to be really interesting. That is for sure.
Yeah, no, crazy times, right? This
Absolutely.
Like, you can't, something you really can't plan for in the sports world, for a pandemic.
Yeah.
But, I really appreciate the panelists coming on tonight. And, sitting here listening to you guys and stuff I do, it's pretty cool because, like, each of the panelists in their own way has taken, like, what was passion to them in their lives, and they've actually turned it into how to make a living, right? And they turn that into their craft and how they actually spend the majority of their time at their job. And that's what I want to always impart to my students too when I'm talking to them is find what you're passionate about, find what you're passionate about, and then take that and try to work to make a living doing it. It's not always going to happen right off the bat, but if you keep being persistent about it and believing in yourself, someone's got to represent Justin Tucker, right? Someone's got to represent Rick Lovato. Someone's got to work for the pro personnel department of the New York Jets. Someone's got to be AD for the College of New Jersey, so why not you? So that's the kind of message I think. And it's cool to see 4 different individuals talk about their journey in the sports business, which is probably one of the most competitive. Sports entertainment are 2 of the most competitive aspects of commerce to get involved in. And it's really pretty cool to see you guys excel at your jobs and excel, in your fields, just based upon it's something you want to do, you believe in yourself, and no one came out to you, no one came to Greg and said, hey, I'm going to give you a job with New York Jets. You went out and went after it. Same thing with Rick and same thing with Amanda. They went after it. And I think it's a great example to students who are on the call and seeing this and watching it that, if we can do it, so can you. And that's always the message I try to bring out to my students. If I can do what I'm doing and something I love, I enjoy doing it, it's not like work, then you can, whatever it is that you're passionate about, and you can do it, So I really appreciate you guys coming on and bringing this message, sharing your experience with the students. And with that, I'll turn it over to Megan and we'll wrap it up. Oh, Nicole, I'm sorry, Nicole.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. I would like to thank our esteemed panel and moderator for taking the time to participate this evening. And thank you so much to all of our attendees for joining us and submitting such wonderful questions. We know we couldn't get to all of them, but they're much appreciated. This event was recorded and a link will be posted to the School of Business website and sent out to attendees. So again, thank you for joining and thank you for participating.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Nicole.